Hello, everyone, and welcome to another brand new Handle Security webinar. My name is Alina Marie, Webinar Program Manager at Handle Security, and of course, I will be your host for this event. Um, for those of you that are attending the webinar or for the first time, please allow me to quickly share a few things about myself. For the past 15 years, I've worked for different tech companies such as Optimize, HP, and Oracle. I'm passionate about technology and photography, cars, and traveling as well. It's a real pleasure to have you all here. Thank you very much for joining. I hope you will enjoy this session. So this is the agenda for today. Of course, it's only natural to also introduce the Handle company for those of you that are attending the webinars for the first time or maybe haven't heard about us yet. And then we'll move forward to talking about email security. We'll discuss how we secure the email, what is email security, how does it work, what are the top threats to email security. I'll give you a couple of tips and tricks on how to spot suspicious emails. And once you do so, maybe how to report them, what to do. And then we'll also talk about how you can deploy some email security best practices in your organization to better help you have a more rock solid cybersecurity posture overall. Of course, I'll also give you a high-level overview of our email security solutions so that you are just better informed whenever you're going to be on the market for such a solution, you know what's out there. On the Q&A session, I'll take any questions that you may shoot up until that time. You can use the question box on your GoToWebinar control panel. If you have a really good story about an email security breach that you may have heard of, or maybe you have experienced, and if you'd like to share with us, please write it there in the question box, and I'll have a look at it, and maybe I'll share it with the entire audience. And also at the very end, I have a little surprise for you guys, so bear with me up until that time. I think you're gonna like it. Good. So we've covered the agenda now. Let's introduce Handle Security. So we are a leading European provider of cloud-based cybersecurity. We are based in Denmark, in Copenhagen. As you can see from our logo, we take our northern heritage very seriously. And even our name, Heimdall, it's actually originating from the Northern mythology as well. Heimdall was actually the ultimate guardian. He was a protector of the Bifrost bridge that connected the earth with the home of the gods, the city Asgard. And if you've seen the Thor movies by Marvel, you may remember him as being the superhero that wore that gold-plated armor. It was played by the actor Idris Elba. Really, the whole foundation of what we do as a company is down the same lines. We are protecting your machines, making sure that any malware that's trying to get from the internet into your computers will actually be stopped by Handle's Guard. Our product, the Handle product, has been on the market since 2014. And we've been actually invented by some of the winners of what's called the DEF CON Capture the Flag tournament. That's seen as the World Hacking Championship. And then there we had our guys that won the tournament in 2011 and 2012. They were competing against the likes of the FBI, the NSA, freelancers, big security companies as well. So as I said, we won that championship for 2 years in a row. And then when the guys come back, they said, you know what, if we can win this championship, we can for sure fend off some hackers. So that's kind of how they laid the ground for what is now Handle Security. And today we have some of the market's leading products in proactive threat prevention, and our threat intelligence is actually appraised by the FBI. It's endorsed by the Danish Cybercrime Police, the NC3. And we are working together with Europol, with the US Department of Justice, in something that's called the No More Ransom Initiative. You can Google it. I'm sure you're going to find a lot more about that as well. On another train of thoughts, we are honored and very delighted that Royal Bank of Scotland chose us as the recommended cybersecurity solution for their business customers. So that was a very quick overview of who we are and what we do as a company. Obviously, if you have questions about this, feel free to type them and I'll try to answer them either now or get back to you with an email. So now let's talk about email security. First of all, how secure is it, the email? Well, the Internet Hall of Fame actually defined the email as a complete revolution, fundamentally changing the way people communicate. And that's still true today. Even though we're witnessing like a huge increase in the popularity of different collaboration tools and instant messaging, obviously email is still a core part of what we do daily on our digital lives, right? Last year, there were approximately 306 billion emails that were sent out daily. And it seems that this number is projected to grow with 60 billion by 2024. So the invention of email is credited to the internet pioneer that's named Ray Tomlinson. And this is actually, not sure if you know, but this is actually the same guy that contributed to the development of the first experimental computer virus. Email, however, is now being used a little bit differently from what he imagined and what he expected. And in and of itself, it's not secure. And you may wonder why, right? Well, it was not designed with security in mind. And even though the inherent protection of email has quite increased since email was created, it is still far from being, a fully protected communication medium for exchanging data. And should you or your organization want to really kind of avoid being the protagonist of yet another email-related cybercrime news, just as you would deploy DNS security in your organization, so should you deploy email security. So now you may be wondering, what is email security? We have here the definition by Gartner on the screen. But in short, email security refers to the joint safety measures that are employed by an organization or individual to protect an email service or an email account, and of course, secure access and communication. And this should be approached as a multi-layered concept, if you will, that combines employee education, that combines robust cybersecurity policies, and of course, proper security tools. So you may be wondering how it works. Well, simply put, email security is based on technologies that examine and encrypt incoming and outgoing emails to basically protect the users and the data from various cybercrime incidents, right? So these technologies are defined as gateways. These gateways, what they do, how they work, they basically scan all inbound and outbound email for potentially infected attachments, malicious URLs, investigate, the domain of the incoming emails, and if needed, block them, or even quarantine them so that the IT teams can do their forensic work after that if that's necessary. And since a company personnel can usually be one of the attacker's main targets, email security gateways provide a lot of advantages for enterprises. They offer protection against spam, against malware and phishing and other type of threats that I want to kind of bring up next, like the top threats to email security. But before I do so, I have a poll that I prepared for you. And I'm just curious to know, what do you believe to be a top emerging threat to email security? So I'm going to activate that poll now. I hope you guys will be able to see it. So you can just answer. I'll give you 30 seconds to a minute to answer what do you believe to be like a top emerging threat to email security. Something that's maybe new or not so traditional. I'm just curious to know how you guys approach this and how you think about it. All right, 30 seconds left. Still a couple of you that need to vote. right, so 5 seconds left. Let's have a look at that. I'm gonna close the poll. Awesome. So let me share the results with you guys. Hope you can see it. So a lot of you still believe that phishing it's going to be an emerging threat. Actually, it's phishing right now, and I'm going to talk a little bit more detail about it. This is like the top email security threat at the moment. But there are still some more advanced type of phishing or cybercrime techniques, if you will, that I'm going to talk about, and those are going to be business email compromise and vendor email compromise. I'll talk about them and kind of give you an overview of how this works and what they do. You may not be aware of it, but they are extremely well crafted, and I would say extremely dangerous as well. So with that in mind, I'm going to hide the poll. I'm going to move on to phishing, as I said. So we have the definition here on the screen, but what happens with a phishing attack is that it usually involves sending emails by pretending to come from legitimate entities, right? And their goal is to trick people into sharing their sensitive information, whether that's login credentials for an email, whether that's credit card information, personal information, or whatever type of information that would actually compromise either a person or an account or a service perhaps that person would use. And as I said, it still represents one of the major threats to email security, as when really not having the proper tools and not having the employees properly trained, they will fail to recognize the signs of a phishing attack and will easily fall prey to the attackers, thus compromising your network. And usually when the attackers deliver phishing, they tend to create panic. And for example, in their emails, they're going to use phrases like your account has been hacked. Please change the password immediately. Or they're going to try to impersonate some IT person saying you had a security breach. Please go to the following link and change your email password. Or even talk about things like your bank account has been hacked. Please log in here and check your current saldo. All of these work on purely on human mistakes, and the attackers are going to be very creative when they're going to do that. For example, in March 2020, there was a 600% increase in the number of phishing emails that were sent out. 18% of that were related to COVID-19, and they had an increase in the successful attacks by 37%. And that trend doesn't even seems to slow down. According to the Anti-Phishing Working Group, 2,100 new phishing websites are created every single month. And only in the past 3 months, we managed to stop over 2 million phishing and fraud emails before they had a chance to do damage to our customers. So still one of the major threats to email security, and still very dangerous and still very successful, it seems, for the hackers. Moving to the next threat, I'm going to talk about email spoofing. Again, we have a definition here on the screen. I'm not going to read it, but to put it in very simple terms, email spoofing is a more targeted and well thought phishing email. They're going to be much more careful when they're going to craft it. And they're going to be spoofing either the email address or spoof the organization or maybe the names in an email, so that they're going to make it like it's really legitimate. It's really coming from a legitimate source. And recently, there was a US-based company that unfortunately became the victim of an email-based scam. They actually lost $15 million, if you can believe it. The full story and the anatomy of the attack can be found on an article on our blog. But in short, after the attackers managed to gain access to an email account that belonged to the organization, they created some email forwarding rules just to make sure that they received the messages from the targeted email, from the one that they hacked it, and they would forward those emails to their own inbox, so that they would never lose access to that information. And after intercepting that communication, between senior executives, they eventually requested for, of course, a fake money transfer. And that actually turned to be, in the way that it was crafted and everything else, it was an email phishing scam, but it went the next level, and that leads me to the business email compromise, because this is what it turned out to be, in fact. So you may be wondering, what is business email compromise, or BEC? Well, BEC is a form of cybercrime that uses email fraud, of course, to attack commercial, government, nonprofit organization to achieve a specific outcome, which negatively impacts the target organization, usually money. And of course, the term covers a wide variety of malevolent behavior, but all forms of BEC have one thing in common. They need to get access to a business email account, or to be able to fake it. In some cases, business email compromise can refer to hacker spoofing or getting access into a business email account in order to send fraudulent emails to your colleagues, to your employees or employers or business partners. In other cases, they could be spoofing or hacking the accounts of a partner and send you emails from that partner in order to take advantage from you. In all cases, whenever they're going to get access to that, they will make sure that it's going to be worth it while. They're going to try to extort the maximum amount of data and money out of that victim. And it seems that they actually did so. They're keeping themselves busy. FBI actually, last year in April, they issued a warning over a business email compromise scam wave that have costed only the US companies more than $2 billion. And now it seems these guys are taking BEC to another level of sophistication, making it more complex. And that is vendor email compromise. And vendor email compromise, it's a recently discovered type of email scam. And it's basically an email attack that targets an entire supply chain and then uses stolen information from one organization to defraud the vendors, business partners, and individuals. And this scams really preys on the employees that are working at the vendor companies. And apparently, it's being run by a group that's named Silent Starling, which the researchers at Agari have identified. And compared to the business email compromise, where most of the times the hackers are going to use a sense of urgency in their communication, the VEC attack requires extreme patience. So it's going to be a longer process. The attacker, they're going to do an extensive amount of research just to find out as much valuable information as they can about their targets. And here's how it works. So it starts with phase one, when they're going to send the first phishing wave. And this time, the target for the phishing wave is going to be the vendors, right? So they're going to use phishing emails, phishing websites. That obviously is going to impersonate legitimate type of websites like, I don't know, Office 365 or OneDrive or many others. And you may be wondering, right, who is falling for these? Well, unfortunately, you cannot be surprised, because it seems that the accounts of 39 employees across multiple functions in a US company, such as billing, HR, senior executive, sales, they have been compromised. So once that happens, they're going to move to phase two, which is account takeover. And here in this stage, the attackers would access the hacked accounts, of course, and they're going to look for vendors who could be impersonated. And in the same time, they would create rules to forward and even redirect copies of all the incoming emails from the respective vendors into their own inboxes. And this way, they can just keep a very low profile and continue their activity without the user suspecting anything. Once that happens, they move to phase three. And here is really where a lot of that patience that I was mentioning a little bit earlier is going to be consumed. They would need to, in this phase, to spend their time and harvest a lot of information in order to be able to impersonate a real vendor representative, just to make sure that they crafted really, really well. They're going to gather vendor customers. They're going to gather invoices just to get a sense of how they look and how they feel, how the wording in there is done. They're going to gather customer payments, due dates, contracts, due amounts, the persons that are responsible for making the payments, and so on. So once they have enough information, they're going to move to phase 4, which in phase 4 is they will start crafting authentic looking spear phishing emails and then send them to the vendor's customers this time. And just like in a standard business email compromise attack, the goal is, of course, to trick the victim into transferring money to that fraudster's account. And unfortunately, it seems that since late 2018, over 700 employee accounts from more than 500 companies have been compromised. And it seems that 20,000 sensitive emails have been harvested. So as I said, these guys are really keeping themselves as busy as they can. And the final threat to email security I want to bring up today is email delivered malware. Of course, malware is any harmful software that is intended to communicate with or damage or maybe obtain unauthorized access to a device or a service. And commonly, of course, malware can be inserted into email attachments or in phishing links that are inside the body of an email. And of course, the goal here is to execute different malicious functions, such as maybe encrypting, deleting, exfiltrating data, or even tracking a user's behavior. These malware types can be viruses, can be worms, can be Trojans, spyware, ransomware, just a couple of examples of the type of different forms of malware that can hide in emails. And these malware threats are really getting more and more advanced and challenging to fight with. That's why it's really crucial, I would say, that you and of course your users and your employees are going to take all the necessary steps to ensure the safety of their email account against attacks, just to prevent unauthorized access. Because if they're going to compromise a machine, it's very likely that they're going to be able to compromise other machines within the network. So now, just a couple of tips, if you will, that can perhaps help you spot a suspicious email, right? So here's an example of that. This is an email I received. The first thing you need to look out for is make sure that the sender email address is articulate and it matches the company name. If you look here in this picture, you will be able to see that the email appears to come from Chaser Online, but it's just a random string of characters that really doesn't make any sense. Then, whenever an email does not contain your name, or if there's a blank space where the name should be, just pay more attention to that. This happens because a lot of times hackers don't have a lot of information about you. They may just have your email address. So they're going to craft templates that match everyone. Then you should also look at how the email is written. You'll notice here in the body of the email that there are a lot of spelling and grammar errors. Pay close attention to that. Whenever an organization is going to send you an email and it's going to be coming from a legitimate organization, a legitimate source, they usually tend to pay very close attention to that type of email, and also be on the lookout for the sense of urgency that the email is kind of providing you. Here is telling me that, they've locked my account and I cannot send payments and withdraw money, basically whatever I'm going to do with a bank account, right? It's trying to rush me and to trick me into getting there. Also, very important, make sure that the images, colors, and the branding in the email match the original website. Pay close attention to that. Sometimes it's going to be pretty close, maybe trickier to spot, but just be on the lookout for that as well. Also, whenever you're going to see a link in an email, it's crucial that you don't click on it at first. Just hover your mouse over it and you're going to be able to visualize on your browser what is actually the address where that so-called legitimate link that we have here is going to take you. So if I hovered over this chase.com login verifications, thinking that this is like a legitimate website, but then the link itself was very different. I erased some of the characters here. I don't want to risk having people going there, but you get the point, I suppose. Also, you should also pay close attention whenever you request or you receive a request from a company you haven't interacted with before, whenever you receive a delivery notice for a package or something that you never expected. If you're notified for you won a prize that you never entered for, you never participated in a competition or something like that. And whenever you receive urgent requests of money, of credentials that need to be changed or validated, just pay close attention to that, as there are high chances that these are going to be a phishing attempt. So what do you do after you have spotted and can identify that this is a phishing email that you're looking at? Well, you can report email fraud, and it's highly encouraged to do so. So if that's happening on your business email address, if you suspect it has been compromised or there's something wrong with it, you see something that can attract your attention, immediately contact your IT administrator or cybersecurity team. That happens even if you, in the same situation, if you've seen an email that has come into your inbox and it looks fishy. So that needs to be forwarded to your IT team or cybersecurity team. If you notice that someone is sending emails in the name of a specific company, you can reach out to that company. You can forward them the questionable email and ask them, what's going on, or maybe let them know about, there's a scam that's going on in your name. Someone's using your brand to scam people, so that they can send out communication or maybe have like a public statement warning people that they shouldn't be clicking on those type of links or shouldn't act on those type of emails. Of course, you can also forward the phishing emails to the US Federal Trade Commission, the Anti-Phishing Working Group, the one that I was mentioning just a little bit earlier. Or you can also notify the Internet Crime Complaint Center, the IC3, and you can also report the scams or phishing emails to your state or country consumer protection office. So these were, a couple of tips and tricks on what we can do in this respect, on how you can spot email, phishing emails or fraud attempts or scam attempts, and how you should report them. And before moving to kind of talking about some email security best practices, I have another poll for you guys, and we kind of determined together today that email security helps to keep your organization safe, right? So how do you safeguard your email currently? I'm gonna start with the other poll if I can. And choose this one. I'm gonna launch it. Hope you guys can see it. Again, I'll give you a minute to answer this poll, if you will. Tell me what are you doing in order to keep your organization and your email safe. That's awesome. Right. This is actually excellent. So I'm going to close the poll now, and I'm going to share the results with you. And as you can see, hopefully, if not, let me know. A lot of you are focusing on cybersecurity awareness and education. I think that's absolutely fantastic. Some of you are focusing to run regular phishing tests and use multi-factor authentication, and these are as well best practices that I'm going to bring up and kind of let you know why. Also blocking email forwarding, and of course using email security software, both. And I mean, all of these are very important, but I'm really glad to see that a lot of you are also focusing on educating the employees and making sure that they're properly trained in order to spot those type of threats. So I'm going to hide the poll now, and I will continue with the with my slides here. So indeed, cybersecurity awareness and education was on my top of the list as a best practice as well. And I've been talking about it during my past webinars. I'm going to bring it up again. I cannot stress it enough. It should, a cybersecurity awareness training and education should happen at least twice per year. It is crucial that people understand why they would need to do things in a certain way, what would be the consequences of them not doing that, understand the impact that these phishing emails in this situation would have against them and the organization. And that's really tying in with the advice to run regular phishing tests. Your personnel is really your greatest protection against the email threats, and especially when it comes to phishing. And the significant risk of endpoint compromise can really be avoided by staff that are educated and that have learned how to recognize, cybersecurity threats, and in this case, phishing attempts. We're talking about, and we had an option in the poll to always use multi-factor authentication. Why is this important? Because in case one of your employees would mistakenly click on a suspicious link, maybe they compromise their username and the passwords. If two-factor authentication is enabled, the hackers probably won't be able to access that account if they're not going to have access maybe to their phone or to an authenticator, an application on their phone or something like that, in order to be able to go into the account and do whatever is it that they're doing on that account in order to compromise your organization. Blocking email auto forwarding is also important. You should consider this just to make it harder for the threat actors to gain access to your corporate email accounts as well. And of course, using email security software is always a good idea. It's highly recommended. Basically, it helps you secure your account, the content of your emails, and really prevent them from being read by parties other than the intended parties, of course. However, all of these alone will not suffice. So that's why it's of very big importance to have an integrated cybersecurity solution that would help you and would be able in itself to be able to detect both basic and advanced forms of email attacks. I'm not sure if you knew this, but 35% of client organizations that are moving to Office 365 are actually forced to supplement its natively available email security capabilities with a third-party product. And should you be in such a position, or if you're really looking to boost your email security for your organization, of course, what I like to do now is to actually take you on a tour of our own email security products, so that of course you are better informed and you would be able to make a much educated decision whenever you're going to choose who protects your email. So with that, I'm going to move to the next slide, and here we're going to talk about both our email security solution at a very high level. Both of these, the email security and email fraud prevention, are based on MX record level. What this means is that they're actually situated before the customer server. We're making sure that even when we block it, the malware didn't have access to an infrastructure in the first place. We're blocking it before it's delivered. We are able to keep any email within our systems for 90 days. This way, we're making sure that if something is either blocked by mistake or maybe never delivered due to an internal error with the customer or something, we will have that email available for the customer for 90 days. So not only that we're offering a security advantage, but also if you're thinking about it, this can be a productivity advantage as well. Our email fraud prevention, this is unique in the market solution. With this, we are stopping CF fraud, BEC, VEC, financial fraud, because we're taking a fraudulent approach to how we're thinking about this instead of a malicious approach. And I'll get into a little bit more details about it in the next minutes. Now I want to get into a little bit more in-depth details on our email security filter. And with this, we can integrate with Office 365. It's integrated in a compliant hosting center that is both ISO 27001 and ISAE 3000 certified. And with this, we're able to perform sender check both on SPF and DMARC. We are able to block data leakage based on social security numbers. That's currently available in the US, the UK, in Denmark, and in Germany. We are also able to basically allow users to see their quarantine list, so the emails that they should have received but are in a quarantine and not yet delivered to them. We can really allow you to tailor the flexibility that the users are going to have and how much they can interact with that. They can have no interactivity or as much interactivity as you believe it's going to be worth it. But we have that option in order to be able to allow the users to take a little bit of the burden from your IT teams. Finally, we can execute any attachments in a sandbox in our servers before they ever get to the user. So we are protected not only against phishing and spam, but also against advanced email threats. And just as a reminder, or maybe you're aware of it, I know I've mentioned this a couple of webinars ago, 87% of malware is purely delivered through emails. Now, to get a little bit more in-depth about the email fraud prevention, our solution can be purchased, of course, together with the email security solution or as a standalone solution if needed. And it will, as I said, protect you against the most intrusive attack patterns that at the moment are CEO fraud and business email compromise and vendor email compromise. And for these, we are using 125 different vectors so that we analyze all incoming emails, and we're able to spot any deviations from normal that will show us that an email is in fact a fraudulent email. We're looking at phraseology, basically the way the email is written. We're able to extract any IBAN account numbers from inside the email, and we can match it up against a list of fraudulent IBAN account numbers. Our solution can also detect if someone has modified an attachment like a PDF invoice. We can check how the links are executed as well. And we can also check if there's been any so-called man in the email attack, when what that means is actually that we can check if anyone has placed themselves in the middle of an email thread or email conversation to basically eavesdrop and have a get information about that. And these are like the top 5 vectors that we are using, but there are still 120 more. So as mentioned, we are able to detect if any request of money or transactions are actually to be taken seriously, or if there's a high criticality score, meaning that there's a big chance of them being actually fraudulent. We're not going to block that email, but we're going to flag it. So whoever's going to receive it is going to see a flag attached to it and say, all right, so maybe I should be more careful with what am I going to do with whatever it's in this email. Maybe I need to call the person that actually said that I should do something, maybe make a payment or something like that. Maybe have a video call with him just to make sure, double check I'm not paying money that I shouldn't pay and then get into trouble. So adding a fraud prevention system on top of your email spam filter, of course, it's going to add you an immense amount of protection that just a standard email spam filter can do. Email security and spam filters, most of the times they're looking after malware. They look after malicious emails and links and phishing and spam, but SEO fraud and business email compromise and vendor email compromise are designed to avoid this because they're going to look 100% legitimate to pretty much any email spam filter. So by adding this, we're fraud prevention and detection, we are blocking any fraud attempts. We're able to detect spoofed emails, modified invoices, imposter threats, and of course, this will save you a lot of time for having to do, manual background checks or on every single invoice that you're perhaps going to have to pay. To help you with that, also there's we have a live team of experts that are sitting 24/7 in order to be able to assist and monitor any attempt of fraudulent attacks into your business. So that, ladies and gentlemen, again, apologies for having the slides paused. I don't know what really happened, but that has been a quick overview of our email security solution. I really hope this helps. Let me move on to the Q&A session now. So let's have a look at what questions we have here. Bear with me. Okay, so there's a question. So it says that I said a user can release emails from a quarantine list. So what do you do if there's an attachment that's malicious in that quarantine list? That's a great question. What we do in that situation is that there's an option that we have. It's named forced ATP, and if that option is checked, it will rescan that email, even though the user is going to basically release it from the quarantine, and then send it again into quarantine, but it's going to notify the user that it's being sent to quarantine because it's malicious. So that user would know not to recall that message or to get that message into their inbox because it has a high potential of being malicious, or it's actually malicious. I hope this kind of answers your question. Right. Another one saying, so let's say if you have an email where there's a link that's legitimate at first when you receive it, or receive the email, but later on, the underlying link is being changed to redirect to a malicious website. How do you handle that? Well, so if that particular domain is safe at first, we won't detect anything suspicious with it. And not in the domain, not in the links that are in the email, so everything is going to be 100% legitimate. But and it's going to pass, it's going to come into your inbox. However, if the attackers are going to change the link after that, what you would need to have is basically a DNS security solution that will protect you against being sent to that hacked website or compromised website where that directed you from that email. It is, hackers are not using just one single vector whenever they're putting together their own schemes. They are using multiple attack vectors, and because of this, your organizations should also use multiple security layers to protect email, to protect DNS, to protect, make sure that their applications are 100% updated and kept, all the time secure, antivirus, of course, and so on. And I see some very technical type of questions about servers and the development, and if we can expand the control of the MX records for DMARC and SPF. For that, I will get back to you with more technical documentation in an email. So just rest assured, you're not being ignored. You're going to get your answers in the next couple of days. So hopefully that will help you as well. All right, and the final question that I want to take is somebody's asking that we're keeping the emails on a server for 90 days, but if there's a limit or there's like disk space tiers. No, that's the very short answer. You can keep them for 90 days. We're going to keep them on our servers for 90 days. You can, retrieve them whenever you're going to need them. And there is no disk space limit for that 90 days period. So with that, I am gonna end the Q&A session, and I'm gonna move on to the giveaway. And that consists of, everyone that attended the webinar can get their hands on a 30-day enterprise free trial of, any of our products. Maybe our email products if that's needed, to trace drive them and really see for yourselves how that goes, how they go, how they work, how they can work in your own environment, do the tests that you need to do in order to be confident. Also, one of our cybersecurity consultants are going to get in touch with you for a free vulnerability assessment, so be on the lookout for that as well. And on top of everything that I just mentioned, you're also going to get a key for a free Heimdall Threat Prevention Home license for 1 year and 3 devices from me. That email is going to come in the next couple of days, so check your emails as well. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, I really thank you very much for today's session. Thank you for being here. Very happy to see so many of you attending. I thank you very much for the questions, good questions, for the time that you spent with me today. Hopefully you found the information useful. One more request, please fill in the post webinar survey. This will help you, me and the entire team deliver better content for you in the future. And of course, as usual, until next time, I wish you all good health and stay safe, both offline and online. Thank you very much again, and wish you a very nice day ahead. Bye-bye.